They don't tell you this, but I will. The world is not waiting for you to succeed. It is waiting for you to slip, to blink, to look weak, just once. And when you do, they will take everything. Understand this. Weakness is not forgiven. Weakness is not overlooked. Weakness is noticed, marked, and punished. People may smile in your face, but behind their eyes they're running calculations. Can I use him? Can I bend her? Can I take more than I give? The moment you look uncertain, the math becomes simple. Yes, they can, and they will. You think people admire kindness. They admire strength wearing the mask of kindness. You think loyalty is automatic. Loyalty is conditional, anchored in what you provide, in how secure you make others feel. When you look weak, you don't inspire loyalty, you inspire doubt. Doubt is contagious. Doubt spreads until no one trusts you. Remember this cold law: respect is not granted to the weak. Respect is extracted by the strong. Machiavelli wrote that men judge more by what they see than what they feel. And what they see in you is all that matters. If they see hesitation, your power is gone. If they see conviction, they obey before questioning why. The hidden danger of looking weak is not just that people stop respecting you, it's that they start preparing to replace you, to cut you out, to take what you thought was secure. Weakness signals opportunity. To the predator, to the rival, to the so-called friend, it is blood in the water. If you learn nothing else from me, learn this. The world doesn't ask if you can survive. It tests if you look like prey. And if you do, you already lost. You don't have to say a word for the world to know you're weak. Your body announces it, your tone leaks it, your choices expose it. Weakness is not invisible, it is broadcasted, and the world listens with hungry ears. Here's the brutal truth: people don't attack strength, they orbit it, they adjust around it. But weakness is an invitation. It says, take more from me, push further, test my limits. You don't need to shout weakness for the world to see it. You only need to hesitate, to flinch, to fold when pressure arrives. That's when they strike. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He wrote that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Why? Because fear creates boundaries that love alone cannot hold. Love without strength becomes dependence. But fear, even mild fear, creates respect. Respect that protects you when smiles fade and loyalties shift. Let me carve this into your mind. Looking weak is more dangerous than being wrong. You can recover from a mistake, but once people categorize you as weak, you enter a box you can't escape from. That box has a label, expendable. And from there, you're no longer a person to them. You're a resource, a tool, replaceable. You think silence makes you weak? No, silence is power, if carried correctly. You think saying yes makes you agreeable? No, it makes you disposable. Weakness is not about what you give, it's about what you signal. If your presence tells people you can be bent, they will bend you. Every time. This is the psychology of predators, not wild animals, human predators. They test, they probe, they push. Just like the lion singles out the limping gazelle, people single out the man who apologizes before he's even accused. They spot the woman who avoids conflict like it's poison. They just know who will fold. And if that person is you, your fate is sealed. So here's your first weapon. Cut the leakage. Stop broadcasting signals of uncertainty. No nervous laughter, no over-explaining, no frantic approval-seeking. Cold stillness carries more power than 1,000 excuses. When you speak, cut the fat, say the line, land it, period. That's authority. Second weapon, control perception. Machiavelli warned, men judge more by their eyes than by their hands. What does that mean? It means people don't care about your hidden strength. They care about the image you project. If you want respect, don't hide behind intentions. Sculpt your image. Train your body, your tone, your silence. Become a fortress in plain sight. This is dark tactics. This is survival psychology. This is the cold truth you will never hear from soft voices and empty motivation. The danger of looking weak isn't just lost respect, it's that you invite destruction. So burn this phrase into your memory. Type it in the comments right now. Weakness is blood in the water. The moment you accept this truth, you stop leaking. You stop apologizing. You stop being prey. Weakness doesn't sit quietly in the corner. It doesn't fade away. Weakness is noticed, it's recorded, and then it's weaponized. Understand this, the world is not neutral. Every relationship, every room you enter is a silent negotiation of power. People are scanning you, measuring you, deciding where you stand in the hierarchy. The second they sense softness, hesitation, or fear, they store it away. And one day, they will use it. Machiavelli wrote that men are ungrateful, fickle, liars, and deceivers. That wasn't cynicism. That was observation. He understood the human animal better than most. People admire strength, but they exploit weakness, not always consciously, but inevitably. This is why looking weak is fatal. Your weakness becomes ammunition. It gets recycled into doubt, gossip, manipulation. That co-worker who noticed you can't say no, they'll make you the permanent errand boy. That so-called friend who sees you chasing approval, they'll test how far you'll go before you break. And when you finally resist, they'll guilt you with your own history of submission. That's the Machiavellian principle. The faults you display are the weapons you hand to your enemies. Think about betrayal. It rarely happens because someone hated you from the start. It happens because you gave them leverage. You showed too much trust. You revealed too much insecurity. You let them see that you'd rather avoid conflict than enforce respect. That's all they need. A single crack in your armor, and they'll wedge it open until your entire frame collapses. The hidden danger is this. Weakness makes you predictable, and predictable people are easy to manipulate. If they know you'll avoid confrontation, they corner you with confrontation. If they know you'll over-explain, they demand explanations. If they know you fear rejection, they withhold approval. They don't need power themselves, they just need you to give yours away. And you will, unless you learn to weaponize strength. So here's your counter-strategy. Never let your weaknesses become public property. Yes, you will have flaws, but flaws are tolerable. What's intolerable is showcasing them. Keep them private, mask them, camouflage them under composure. People can't exploit what they can't see. Second, learn the art of selective disclosure. Machiavelli advised rulers to hide their intentions because the unknown creates hesitation. Be careful what you reveal about your fears, your goals, even your boundaries. The less they know, the less they can twist. Third, master consequence. When people see no consequence for pushing you, they push harder. When they see doors close, access restricted, tone sharpened, they stop. Not because they respect you morally, but because they respect survival. This is the cold truth. Human nature is opportunistic. Weakness doesn't invite pity, it invites calculation. And calculation kills respect. Write this into the comments so your brain absorbs it. My weakness will never be their weapon, because if you don't guard yourself, you won't need enemies. You'll hand them the knife. Reality is slow. Perception is instant. And in a world where decisions are made in seconds, perception always wins. People don't wait to understand who you really are. They judge what you look like, how you enter the room, how you sit, how you breathe between words. Before you've spoken a full sentence, the verdict is already in: respect or dismissal, predator or prey. Machiavelli warned, "Men judge more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see but few can touch." What did he mean? That people don't care about your hidden strength. They care about the story you project, the image you radiate, the surface that strikes them first. This is why weakness is so dangerous. It doesn't need to be proven, it only needs to be seen. If they perceive weakness, you're already categorized, and once you're categorized, escaping that label is nearly impossible. But here's the advantage: perception is malleable. It can be shaped, weaponized, controlled. Power isn't just what you have, It's what others think you have. And in many cases, the illusion of strength is stronger than strength itself. Think about it. Armies have collapsed not because they were defeated, but because they believed they were outmatched. Rivals withdraw not because you destroyed them, but because they felt resistance in your presence. People surrender long before the first blow, because the aura told them the battle wasn't worth fighting. So here's how you build it. First, master stillness. Weak men fidget. They overmove. They leak nerves. The strong conserve motion. Every movement is deliberate, slow, and exact. That stillness radiates control, and control radiates power. Second, control your voice. Speak with calm authority. End sentences clean. Don't climb in pitch at the end like you're asking for permission. The cold tone of finality creates an unconscious hierarchy. Others fall beneath it. Third, sculpt your image. Clothes, grooming, posture, these are not vanity, they are signals. People assume what they see is what you are. Look sharp, look intentional, look composed, and half the work is already done before you open your mouth. And lastly, use absence. When you're always available, you're undervalued. When your time is scarce, your presence becomes expensive. Even kings understood this. Absence magnifies respect. Show up less, and when you do, the weight multiplies. Never forget, the perception of strength deters conflict. The perception of weakness invites it. That is the battlefield you must win before a word is even spoken. So burn this phrase into your mind. Comment it now. Perception is my weapon, because once you master perception, you no longer chase respect, it chases you. This is the Machiavellian edge, the cold law that appearance defines reality, and those who sculpt perception rule those who live in denial of it. Predators don't announce themselves. They don't roar before the strike. They watch, they test, they calculate, and the moment they sense weakness, they move. That is not cruelty. That is survival. Humans are no different. The man who raises his voice at you just to see how you react. The colleague who gives you an unfair task, waiting to see if you'll protest. The friend who insults you disguised as a joke, watching if you laugh along. These are not accidents. These are tests. They are probing for softness, for cracks, for hesitation. If you let it slide once, you've answered the test. You've broadcasted weakness. And from that moment forward, you are marked. Machiavelli understood this brutal rhythm of human nature. He wrote that men forget the death of their father more easily than the loss of their inheritance. What does that mean in plain terms? People are more sensitive to opportunity than to morality. They are wired to notice advantage, and when they see it, they take it. Weakness is that opportunity. It is the currency of exploitation. It is the silent permission slip you hand to everyone around you. Think about it. Predators never chase the strongest animal in the herd. They isolate the distracted one, the limping one, the one lagging behind. In human terms, the distracted one is the person too desperate for approval. The limping one is the man who folds under pressure. The one lagging behind is the woman who avoids conflict at all costs. They might smile, they might nod, but inside, they're already circling. The predator's instinct is not something you can beg away. You cannot convince people to stop testing you. You cannot negotiate with their instincts. You can only answer the test. And your answer must be cold. The raised voice must be met with silence or steel, never flinching. The unfair demand must be pushed back without apology. The insult disguised as humor must be returned with a gaze that strips the mask. That is how predators learn. Not through explanation, but through consequence. When you respond with strength, the test ends. They shift their gaze elsewhere. Not because they suddenly like you, but because they now recognize that you are not prey. You are not the limping one at the back. You are not the soft ground they hope to walk over. You are the wall, and walls are not tested twice. Understand this truth. Every interaction is a silent duel. Someone is always probing, consciously or not, to see who holds the edge. If you hesitate, you lose. If you flinch, you submit. But if you hold firm, if you radiate stillness, if your presence tells them that pushing you costs too much, they back away. Stamp this into your psychology. Comment it right now so it imprints on your mind. I am not prey, I am the wall. Because once you understand the predator's instinct, you stop resenting it and you start mastering it. Presence can make you visible, but absence makes you valuable. Most people don't understand this law, and because of that, they suffocate their own power. They think constant availability creates loyalty. They think being present at every moment builds connection. But what it really builds is familiarity, and familiarity always breeds contempt. When you are always present, always giving, always answering, people stop seeing you as strength. They see you as background noise. They stop respecting your presence because it's too easy to access. And what is easy to access is never truly respected. This is why kings sat on thrones behind walls, why rulers rarely walked among the common people, why Machiavelli warned that princes should never make themselves too familiar. Because the more they see you, the less they fear you. And the less they fear you, the less they obey you. Absence is not weakness, it is strategy. It creates scarcity. Scarcity is one of the deepest levers in human psychology. When something is scarce, people assume it is valuable. When something is rare, people fight harder to obtain it. Your absence creates this effect. It forces people to feel your weight in the space you leave behind. It makes them measure your worth in your silence, not your noise. Think of the man who is always available. His time is cheap, his presence expected, his power invisible. Then think of the man who withdraws, who chooses when and how to appear, who vanishes just long enough to make people wonder where he is. That man commands attention without even speaking. His absence becomes a weapon. His scarcity creates anticipation, and anticipation is power. Machiavelli himself understood this principle. He wrote that men are governed more by necessity than by love. When you are absent, you create necessity. You force others to come to you, to reach out, to chase the resource they no longer control. Absence flips the dynamic. Instead of you proving your worth to others, they begin to prove their worth to you. And here's the darkest truth. Absence punishes without a word. The one who insults you, the one who tests you, the one who doubts you, what they crave most is your attention. Remove it, and you strike deeper than anger ever could. The silent withdrawal stings harder than confrontation because it denies them what they value most, relevance. This is why you must never be afraid to step back, to disappear, to hold your silence when they expect words, to vanish from spaces that drain you until your return feels like an event. You are not oxygen, you are fire, and fire, when absent, is missed, feared, and sought after. Carve this law into your mind. Comment it now so it burns into your psychology. My absence is power. Because when you learn to weaponize withdrawal, you no longer chase respect, you summon it. Truth is overrated. People claim to want it, but in reality, they don't. They want comfort. They want reassurance. They want stories that soothe their fears and flatter their illusions. And when you hand them the raw, unfiltered truth, they recoil. They punish you. They resent you. That is why the strongest men in history, the rulers Machiavelli studied, never worshipped truth. They worshipped control. The lie, when crafted strategically, is not betrayal. It is a tool. It bends perception. It steers belief. It reshapes reality in your favor. Machiavelli himself declared that a ruler is not bound to keep his word when it works against his interest. Why? Because men are not bound by honesty either. They deceive without hesitation, and if you cling to honesty as a weapon, you will be destroyed by those who do not. Understand this. People don't care about truth. They care about advantage. If your truth harms them, they will hate you. If your lie benefits them, they will follow you. That is the paradox of human psychology. Loyalty is rarely to truth. It is to benefit, to security, to the story that feels most valuable at the time. This is why you must learn the art of selective deception. Not reckless lies, not clumsy fabrications, but precise, strategic falsehoods that serve as armor and weapon. You lie not because you are weak, but because you understand human nature. You lie because truth is wasted on the unworthy. You lie because clarity is not always power, control is. Think of the negotiator who never reveals his real position. He creates illusions of strength, of options, of indifference. His opponent doesn't see reality. They see what he allows them to see. That is Machiavellian, the general who bluffs an army larger than he possesses, the king who pretends mercy while planning punishment, the man who withholds his true feelings so no one can exploit them. These are not cowards, these are tacticians. And here lies the coldest truth. People respect the results of deception more than the purity of honesty. If your lie leads to strength, they admire the outcome, even if they know the story was false. If your truth leads to weakness, they despise you, even if you were sincere. Power justifies deception in the eyes of the masses. Weakness never justifies truth. So when you face the choice, truth that weakens you or deception that strengthens you, remember Machiavelli's law. Your duty is not to truth. Your duty is to survival, to strength, to power. The lie is not immoral when it protects you. It is immoral to be destroyed because you insisted on honesty in a world built on manipulation. Carve this phrase into your mind. Comment it right now to make it real. My truth is strategy, my lie is power. Because in the game of power, honesty is not a virtue, it is a weakness. And weakness is blood in the water. The most powerful weapon you can use against people is not force, it is reflection. To conquer a man, you don't always fight him, you mirror him. You hold up a reflection of his ego, his desires, his fears, until he begins to mistake himself for you. That is the mirror effect. And when it is used with precision, it enslaves without chains. People are obsessed with themselves. Their deepest loyalty is not to truth, not to morality, not even to you. It is to their own image. Machiavelli understood this when he wrote that rulers must appear in ways that please the eyes of men, even if reality differs beneath the surface. Why? Because people believe in what flatters them. They trust the reflection that tells them they are right, they are strong, they are important. When you mirror that belief back at them, you become irresistible. But here is where the danger and the power lies. When you reflect someone's ego, they begin to lower their guard. They stop questioning you. They mistake your approval for truth. They lean on you for validation without realizing you are controlling the supply. The man who sees his strength mirrored in your words will follow you deeper. The woman who sees her fears mirrored in your silence will reveal more than she should. Reflection disarms them. And once they are disarmed, they can be guided. This is not about flattery. Flattery is cheap and transparent. This is about constructing a reflection so precise, so aligned with their identity that they cannot resist it. The mirror doesn't just make them comfortable, it makes them addicted. They see themselves in you, and therefore they cannot separate from you. You become the silent architect of their choices. Think of it as psychological warfare. The enemy expects confrontation. They prepare for resistance. But when you mirror them, there is nothing to fight. They step closer, willingly, until they are trapped inside their own reflection. That is the genius of the mirror effect. It feels safe while it enslaves. Machiavelli's cold wisdom applies here. He taught that it is not necessary for a ruler to possess every virtue, only to appear to. Appearances are reflections. They are illusions carefully sculpted. When you master the mirror, you do not need force to dominate. You let people walk willingly into their own prison, a prison you built from their ego. And here is the darkest truth. People rarely break free from their own reflection. They would rather live in the illusion that flatters them than face the truth that wounds them. Which means if you control the mirror, you control them, sometimes for life. Write this law into your psychology. Comment it now, so it sinks into your subconscious. I control the mirror, I control the power. Because when you learn to reflect strategically, you don't chase obedience, you create it. Love is beautiful, love is soft, love is celebrated in songs and stories. But in the world of power, love is fragile. It bends, it fades, it changes with moods and circumstances. Fear, on the other hand, is carved into the bone. Fear does not vanish when someone is upset. Fear does not waver when emotions shift. Fear anchors respect when love cannot. That is why Machiavelli wrote that if a ruler must choose between being loved or feared, he should always choose fear, because love is unreliable, but fear is constant. This truth unsettles people because it tears away illusions. We want to believe that love is enough to hold loyalty, but human psychology proves otherwise. People love you today and betray you tomorrow. They praise you in public and envy you in private. Love is conditional, and it dies the moment it costs them too much. But fear, it stays. It lingers in the back of the mind like a shadow that never leaves. Even if they hate you, they will not move against you if fear is strong enough. Understand this: fear is not cruelty. Fear is clarity. It sets boundaries that love alone cannot enforce. The father who only seeks love from his children becomes a servant to their whims. The leader who only seeks love from his people becomes a puppet to their demands. But the one who instills fear, quiet, controlled, disciplined fear, commands respect even in his absence. People may not always love him, but they obey him, and obedience is what sustains power. Fear works because it touches the most primal layer of the human brain, the survival instinct. People will abandon what they love if survival is at stake, but they will cling to what they fear because fear feels dangerous to resist. The truth is simple: you can be loved and still betrayed. But it is rare to be feared and betrayed at the same time. Betrayal becomes too expensive when fear is present. Machiavelli did not glorify cruelty, he glorified effectiveness. He warned that rulers should avoid being hated, but he insisted that fear must outweigh love. Why? Because hatred provokes rebellion, but fear without hatred builds stability. The one who balances this line, instilling just enough fear to prevent disobedience without fueling open revolt, is the one who remains untouchable. Look at history. The rulers remembered for strength are not those who sought love. They are the ones who commanded fear. Empires were not built on affection. They were built on discipline, on consequence, on the silent knowledge that defiance would cost too much. That is the cold law of survival. Love decorates the throne, but fear protects it. Burn this truth into your psychology. Type it into the comments so it becomes part of your identity. Fear protects what love cannot, because when you learn this law, you stop begging for loyalty and you start commanding it. Reputation is the shadow that walks ahead of you. Long before you speak, long before you act, your reputation has already entered the room and made decisions for you. It tells people how to treat you, how far to push you, and whether you are to be respected or exploited. In power, reputation is more valuable than gold because gold can be stolen. But reputation, once forged, can move armies without a blade being drawn. Machiavelli was ruthless in this truth. He wrote that a ruler does not need to possess every virtue, but he must appear to possess them. Why? Because perception is stronger than fact. Men judge more by appearances than by reality. A man of no true courage, if he looks fearless, will be treated as fearless. A man of no great wealth, if he looks untouchable, will be respected as untouchable. Reputation is the mask that becomes reality. This is why the danger of looking weak is so catastrophic. It infects your reputation. The moment weakness attaches to your name, it spreads faster than fire. People do not remember your dozens of strong moments. They remember the single weakness, the single collapse, the single humiliation. And from that day on, they measure you by that shadow. Reputation does not forgive easily, and that is why you must guard it with fire. Every careless word, every unnecessary exposure, every time you let someone cross a boundary without consequence, you put a crack in your reputation, and cracks invite invasion. The cold truth is this: people rarely attack strength directly, but they will circle like vultures when they sense your reputation has softened. A powerful reputation eliminates battles before they begin. When people believe you are ruthless, they think twice before crossing you. When people believe your standards are unbreakable, they treat you with care, even in silence. The reality doesn't even matter. They don't test if you are truly ruthless. They assume you are, and that assumption keeps you safe. But reputation works both ways. If people believe you can be walked on, they won't ask permission. They'll take. They won't test carefully. They'll strip you bare. And when you try to fight back, they'll laugh, because your reputation has already answered the question for them. This one can be used. So you must sculpt your reputation as if your life depends on it. Because it does. In every word, every response, every appearance, you are shaping the story people will tell when you are not in the room. That story is either your sword or your coffin. Carve this into your mind. Type it in the comments now so you never forget. My reputation is my armor. Because once you build it strong enough, you will no longer need to fight for respect. It will arrive before you. Power is not a destination. It is not a mountain you climb once and then rest on the peak. Power is a war that never ends. The moment you relax, the moment you soften, the moment you believe your respect is permanent, you are already decaying. The cold truth is this: respect, fear, reputation, strength, they are not possessions. They are fires. And if you do not feed the fire every day, it dies. Machiavelli warned that fortune is like a flood. It spares no man who leaves his defenses weak. Power works the same way. You can build a fortress of strength, but if you stop patrolling its walls, enemies will seep in. You can forge a reputation of ruthlessness, but if you let a single moment of weakness spread, it will rot your image from the inside. You can make others fear you, but if you stop enforcing consequences, that fear turns into mockery. Everything you've learned comes down to this final law: power is not won, it is maintained. This is where the weak fail. They think one victory secures them forever. They think one show of strength makes them untouchable. But the wolves are always watching. The rivals are always circling. The predators are always probing for cracks. Weakness is patient. It waits for you to get comfortable. It waits for you to believe you've made it. And when your guard drops, weakness moves in. That is why you must sharpen yourself endlessly. Cold composure, ruthless boundaries, strategic silence, controlled presence, selective deception, fear over love, a reputation guarded like your life. These are not tools you use once. They are disciplines you live by. The world never stops testing you, so you never stop enforcing. The man who understands this becomes untouchable, not because he is perfect, not because he never stumbles, but because he never stops correcting, never stops strengthening, never stops maintaining the fire. People sense it. They sense the steel in his silence, the discipline in his presence, the inevitability of consequence if they push too far. That man does not beg for respect. He demands it, without a word. And here is the last truth you must accept: kindness, morality, love. These are luxuries of the strong. Only when you have built your fortress can you choose when to show mercy. But if you try to lead with them, you will be destroyed. First comes strength. First comes power. Only then do you control when to show softness. That is the Machiavellian order of survival. Write this into your mind. Etch it into your identity. Comment it one last time so it brands itself into you. Power is maintenance, because if you remember nothing else from dark tactics, remember this: power is not an achievement. It is a discipline. It is a war, and it never ends. Now, if this has burned into you, if it has given you the cold truth no one else dares speak, then feed the fire. Like this video, subscribe to Dark Tactics, turn on notifications so you never miss another law of survival. Because this is not entertainment, this is training, and those who fail to train become prey.